What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, we got some very interesting news as MATCHROOM CEO and promoter Eddie Hearn accidentally exposes the fact that 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer, who is currently the unified super middleweight world champion, he holds the WBC, the WBA, the WBO, and the Ring Magazine super middleweight world title, and is widely reported and speculated that he'll face undefeated IBF super middleweight world champion superstar boxer CALLUM Sweethand Plant in September. Actual date, September 18th is the target date. With that said, we know at 160, Canelo Alvarez, he had undefeated 2-division world champion, currently the WBC reigning middleweight world champion, superstar boxer Jermall Charlo, as his mandatory challenger at 160. And when brought and presented the idea of being franchised by WBC president Mauricio Suleiman, who stated that Canelo Alvarez actually seeked out the franchise so he didn't have to honor the mandatory challenge in Jermall Charlo, he accepted. So that way Jermall Charlo was handed the WBC title, and Canelo Alvarez wouldn't have to face any of his mandatories. But here we have a situation where Eddie Hearn says that the WBC offered Canelo Alvarez to be franchised at the super middleweight division after he defeated CALLUM Smith, who was the undefeated WBA reigning super middleweight world champion, British superstar boxer. They went to a unification bout as David Benavidez lost his WBC title on the scale. He's the undefeated 2-time WBC super middleweight Mexican world champion superstar boxer. David Benavidez, he lost the belt on the scales. Canelo petitioned to fight AVNI Yildirim for the vacant WBC title. That wasn't met well with his prior promotional company and Golden Boy Promotions and DAZN. They didn't want to sanction such a fight. They didn't want to promote such a fight or pay for such a fight. Canelo Alvarez then saw his way out of the contract with Golden Boy Promotions and DAZN. He ended up coming back to DAZN with MATCHROOM CEO and promoter Eddie Hearn. But with that said, Eddie Hearn accidentally puts it out there that the WBC presented Canelo Alvarez to be franchised after he beat CALLUM Smith for the unification bout, so that way he didn't have to face any of his mandatories, including AVNI Yildirim, who was on a 2-year layoff and coming off of a loss to Anthony Dirrell. Anthony Dirrell beat AVNI Yildirim for the vacant WBC title that was vacated by David Benavidez once again, because David Benavidez had some outside the sport of boxing, outside the ring activities going on that saw him stripped of the belt. And AVNI Yildirim and Anthony Dirrell, they fought for the belt. Anthony Dirrell beat him. Then Anthony Dirrell, he had to defend the title against David Benavidez, give him an opportunity, and David Benavidez ended up beating Anthony Dirrell and taking the belt back. So it looks like this was going to be a similar situation where David Benavidez could possibly very well come back into play for that WBC title, and the WBC president Mauricio Suleiman, they looked to franchise Canelo Alvarez, so he wasn't faced with this issue, and he could maneuver around AVNI Yildirim as well. But when he realized it was AVNI Yildirim and that fight wasn't such a difficult fight, well, you're going to hear what Eddie Hearn had to say about what Canelo Alvarez chose to do.
Canelo Alvarez didn't want to become franchise champion in the super middleweight division, because that's what they were going to do, because Yildirim...
In the super middleweight division. Canelo Alvarez didn't want to be franchised in the super middleweight division because he knew
was mandatory, but he went through it. He said, no, I don't want to be franchised. I'll take the belt and I will fight who I've got to. Yildirim, no problem. Let's just fit him in between, and let's get that world championship belt, because he wants.
So once again, he saw that it was going to be AVNI Yildirim, and because it was going to be AVNI Yildirim, Canelo Alvarez didn't see much of a challenge in AVNI Yildirim. He didn't represent much of a risk. So Canelo Alvarez, he turned down the opportunity to be franchised at super middleweight because it wasn't such a high risk like Jermall Charlo. He didn't turn down Jermall Charlo when Jermall Charlo was the mandatory challenger for the WBC title. he accepted the franchise belt so he didn't have to face Jermall Charlo. So it's abundantly clear he just didn't want to face the best opposition. In this case, he saw the fight was against AVNI Yildirim, and he saw an opportunity as to which he's more than likely going to win the fight, okay? So he just didn't want the challenge in facing Jermall Charlo. So when he saw the opportunity against AVNI Yildirim, he took it. And the possibility of David Benavidez possibly coming back in the picture because he lost his belt on the scale in a global pandemic. One of the first fights back in the sport of boxing. So he saw the opportunity and he went for it. Of course he turned it down to be franchised because AVNI Yildirim didn't represent the same risk Jermall Charlo or David Benavidez represents. You don't believe me? Let's go to the videotape once again.
Canelo Alvarez didn't want to become franchise champion in the super middleweight division because that's what
in the super middleweight division
they were going to do because Yildirim was mandatory, but he went
because AVNI Yildirim was the mandatory challenger. So when the mandatory challenger was Jermall Charlo at 160, he accepted to be franchised. But when it was AVNI Yildirim, he turned down the opportunity to be franchised. So this lets you know everything you need to know. Canelo Alvarez was one belt away from becoming undisputed at middleweight at 160 after he beat Gennady Triple G Golovkin, who was the unified middleweight reigning world champion. Canelo Alvarez beat him, and he was one belt away from history. He wanted to become the first Mexican undisputed 4 major sanction belt holder in the history of the sport of boxing. And he only needed one more fight. That was the fight the WBO middleweight reigning champion Demetrius Bubu Andrade, and Canelo Alvarez. He turned down that opportunity. He then chose to go all the way up to light heavyweight and challenge the weakest champion at light heavyweight, which was the WBO. Again, ironically enough, he's fighting for the WBO title, but he could have fought for it in another historic manner and become undisputed at middleweight. But no, he chose to go up to light heavyweight, challenge the weaker of the champions, because let's face it, Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol was seen as the better 2 champions over Sergey Kovalev, who was seen somewhat past it and was coming off of a hard, tough fought fight against Anthony Yard, who was, very green. Okay, he had to fight back. He had to dig deep. He had to weather the storm, and he got to stop his victory over Anthony Yard. But nonetheless, it was a hard fought fight, and Sergey Kovalev at that time had been stopped twice by Andre Ward and by later Alvarez, so he wasn't seen as the same guy anymore. And Canelo Alvarez, he went up to 175, challenged Sergey Kovalev in a fight that didn't look that appealing to most boxing fans, to true boxing fans who actually know what they was looking at. Sergey Kovalev didn't seem very, very assertive in the fight, but nonetheless, he got the stoppage victory. Then he went back down to 168, and he fought, other champions at 168. Not looking to absolutely fight the absolute best at 168. And this is where the issue lies, okay? Because fans, true hardcore boxing fans, understand and want to see Canelo Alvarez in the ring with the absolute best. He came back and he fought CALLUM Smith, and that was right after, obviously, David Benavidez, who was calling Canelo Alvarez out for quite some time. He was stripped of the belt due to missing weight on the scale, okay? Then he fought AVNI Yildirim, Billy Joe Saunders, and we know the rest is history. So this lets you know he had the opportunity to face Jermall Charlo. He simply turned it down because of Jermall Charlo representing the risk. We can't say, well, what has Jermall Charlo done? He's a 2-division world champion. He's a superstar in the sport of boxing. He's a much bigger name than AVNI Yildirim. So if you didn't turn down the opportunity to fight AVNI Yildirim, why didn't you turn down the opportunity to fight Jermall Charlo? We know why. AVNI Yildirim, the last time he had the victory was 2018, okay, September of 2018, and he didn't even get a unanimous or a knockout victory. He got a majority decision victory over Lolinga Mock, okay, who had 14 losses and a draw on his resume, okay. Prior to that, he had a victory over a guy who had 3 wins, 31 losses, and 3 draws, okay, and Jose Rodriguez Silvencia, okay. So These are the level of opponents that AVNI Yildirim had been fighting up until the point that he got an opportunity to fight Canelo Alvarez for the mandatory position. But Jermall Charlo, who was the mandatory, couldn't get the opportunity to fight Canelo Alvarez. He decided to accept the franchise title. So we understand what this is. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Hey, this is AVNI Bridges, Blonde Bomber, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.